So the large paintings for the show in December are done. The one right behind you is the latest one,
Right.
which I'm looking at. But I've got a whole stack of the small ones. That's the last one.
Like this one?
Yeah. There'll be the dark and the light blues, but
I see.
I'm going to have a little more fun with those. I'm going to add a little more variation to it'll be variations on a theme.
Right.
In small panels. But that'll be the next few weeks. I'll just be doing these.
They look more kind of dense in the sense that
Yeah.
that they are from edge to edge.
Well, that's what I love about this series. I'm just doing one move.
Right.
I'm just showing you
mean one move per canvas?
Per canvas.
Right. They look good.
It's just one simple idea executed with consideration and patience.
Oh, yeah.
That's it.
That one needs, above all, one needs patience, yeah.
The last time we talked was summertime, I think.
It was summertime?
Yeah, and I told you that this series was inspired by my trip to Japan.
Right.
When I was right before your studio.
Right.
That summer of 2014.
Right.
Li Ufan. His
14, right.
His brushstrokes.
Well, in the East, as you know, brushstrokes are very important.
Very important. Very, very important.
You know, that's why architecture is less appreciated in China. Because it's not done with a brush, you know.
Interesting. This is done with a brush and it's very architectural. I don't see why can't they?
What's done with a brush is far superior, because what's done with a brush is like writing.
Yeah.
See?
Yeah.
So writing is really the queen of the arts.
Yeah.
And everything else is below it.
The first one was just an experiment. It was late at night.
Oh.
And I was working on a commission. And for the commission, I did the studies for the commission with a black underpainting.
All right.
Well, in this case, I was going to paint the underpainting black, but then I said, no, I'm going to try blue.
Right.
And it's raw canvas. It's not grounded, so there's no white. It's not
unprimed.
It's sized with rabbit skin glue, PVA size, but it's not white at all. You can see the raw canvas poking through a bit. So on this particular evening, I started putting Prussian blue on there, and then some ultramarine, and then some turquoise, and then some Payne's gray. And it was really dark because the raw canvas really soaks up all that pigment.
Right.
And then I started to just have fun with it. I was just having fun. And then I got some white paint and I just started to draw. I just started to write. And then a few hours later, I texted Ryan, my boyfriend, and I said, "You got to come over and see this. Like this is unlike. This is so
what you've
fresh.
Done before, right?
Yeah, it was so fresh and new, and it was just so simple. And it was at that point that I realized I was doing what Li Ufan was doing. I was letting the brush just make marks and run out of pigment until you couldn't see it anymore.
Right, the brush.
The brush would just disappear into the darkness. And so you start out very bright and then get darker.
It disappears.
And then sometimes I'm like, I can't even see where I'm painting, but I know it's there. It just disappears. And so that fading effect. When I first saw Li Ufan's work, I was like, I really appreciated how steady his hand was. And how each stroke was just one touch of the canvas or paper.
Right.
There was no going over a second time. They talk about this in like Japanese calligraphy.
Right.
When you start
A line.
a line, you finish it, start, middle, end. Like each stroke has a beginning, middle, and an end. And you don't correct a mistake. If something happens, it happens. If something goes differently than
Right.
expected, you let it go differently than expected.
Right.
It is, like you said, it's life is, what did you say, the unexpected?
A tale of the
A
unexpected.
tale of the unexpected. So it's the same thing in calligraphy. And you don't stop halfway through
No, because calligraphy...
and finish the next day. You finish
Yeah.
it all in one sitting.
Because the ideal of calligraphy is to be like life, you know.
Yeah. I wrote in my little essay for this, there's a Japanese term called ichi-go, ichi-e, which means one chance, one encounter.
Right.
So like our meeting right now
Yeah.
is a once in a lifetime,
Right.
never to be repeated
Right.
moment.
Because it can't be, right.
The tea ceremony.
The time is over.
Yeah, the time when it's done, it's done.
How long did you spend in Japan before?
Oh, that was 2 weeks.
Only 2 weeks?
Only 2 weeks. But I was studying with Kunio Kudo all semester
All right.
before.
But he's a funny version.
Oh yeah, I mean he was great. He was
I can imagine, yeah.
every day he would make us laugh. He would just something crazy. But so with these paintings, the interesting thing about these is that it's all based off of that first night that I did that painting. So from
Right.
start to finish, I have to paint it alla prima.
Right.
It has to be wet.
Right.
I can't come back the next day and finish it.
No.
It'll already have dried too much. So each one of these paintings took 1 day. That's it. Each one of these paintings is a snapshot.
From morning to night.
Well, it's more like afternoon to evening.
Right.
Each one is a snapshot of where I was that day.
Sure.
And that's it. I let it go. And I'm doing the same things that in Eastern traditions that they do. I brush everything once. If something is a mistake, I let it be.
Sure.
There is no mistake in that.
Right.
Well, I am very excited about December. This is going to be a great show.
In December.
Yeah,
Very good. Yeah, it looks good.
yeah.
I mean, the thing about your work that is not only developed, it developed in a very consequential fashion.
Consequential how?
Consequential in the sense that whatever you did, then followed by something else, by something else, by something else.
Yeah.
That's what I call consequential.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because there are people who work all over the place. It doesn't mean that they're necessarily worse, but it's much more difficult to develop your work if it goes simultaneously in so many different ways
Yeah.
that you can hardly keep up with it, you know.
Yeah.
So I see in your work, I see the opposite. I see that you have a very interconnected way of going about it, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
which is very good.
Interconnected is a good word because it's not just the shapes are interconnected on the canvas, but the paintings are interconnected. And the series,
That's right.
one series, you can see the connection between
Yeah.
the next one and then the following one.
What they have in common is the approach, you know, is the
Yeah.
strategy.
And they can look wildly different. Like,
Sure. But the strategy is what is comparable.
let me show you this. It's my latest painting. I did it a few days ago.
Oh, right.
Right? Now, just for fun, I used it in this particular one because I had just finished my last indigo piece for the show.
Right.
I used all the same colors that I did in the show.
All right.
So I used Prussian blue, indigo,
Right.
ultramarine, turquoise,
Right. In this
but I did it in this new style, which is
right.
you talk about tight and orderly with my dark blue ones. This one is very loose and playful. It's a completely different thing. But you can see then the connections.
Oh yes, definitely.
Yeah. But even though they're wildly different from each other, you can tell first of all they're the same artist, and you can tell that one is connected to the other. They're
no doubt. Yes.
No doubt. Yeah. The only way to differentiate, half of December's show is going to be light and half of it is going to be dark. All the dark paintings are essentially identical.
Right.
They all look the same. I mean, you can see around the room, they all look the same.
I look at these two,
Yeah.
They have a lot in common.
So the only way to differentiate one from another is to look at the figure.
Right.
And so I'm asking the viewer to see the lines and to see the dots and to see the patterns, because that's what I am seeing. That's where my brain is
locked on.
Focused, yeah.
Right.
Everything happened for me during that year.
Yeah.
Michelle Fornaby was in the spring. And she did the Dream Studio, remember?
Yeah.
We were experimenting with like...
I'm still in touch with her.
Me too, yeah.
Yeah, she's very nice.
So I learned from her to take advantage of the hypnagogic state of half awake, half asleep.
Right.
Before you fall asleep or as you're waking up.
Right.
To take advantage of that. And so I got into the habit of like drawing or whatever idea.
As you woke up.
As I wake up, maybe I had a dream, I'd write it down, you know, just very immediate. Right? And it was
That's very good.
during the fall when I was in your studio.
Right.
That as I was waking up from something, this whole language
came up.
and it was like, it felt like I was solving an equation, like physics or math.
Sure.
But then it was also kind of morphing. One geometric shape led to another, led to another, led to another. It was almost like an animation. It was a hallucination.
Kind of metamorphosis.
Yeah, it was like I was watching, you know, those like when an amoeba splits into two.
Right.
And it was things like that, you know, like interconnections, you know. And as soon as I woke up, I drew exactly what I saw. And then I put it aside for a while, and I didn't start doing this until a few years later. I was like, I'm gonna go back and revisit that. That was a feeling I haven't been able to capture with my paintings. And so then I started to approach that feeling with this line work, with this pattern making. This isn't like trying to work out some architectural design. It's chasing this feeling that I had.
Right.
With these.
Just that thing.
That thing, like one shape leads to another. There's some sort of internal logic. I can't explain why it's so fascinating to me. It just is.
Well, part of the reason why it was so fascinating for you was precisely that you didn't know exactly where it comes from.
I have an idea of where it comes from, because after I show this work, people say, oh, it looks like an aerial thing. It looks like architecture. It looks like, you know, what's your background? And I'm like, helicopters, architecture, math, you know?
Right.
Like all of these things subconsciously make their way into the art.
Right.
And so this is like a conscious expression of my subconscious.
Right.
It's like an imprint I'm making. It's like I'm dictating. It's like on the canvas. It's more like it's like externalizing what's inside, that it comes out, and it happens one piece at a time.
Right.
But it grows like a fungus across the canvas, and it's my job to say, okay, I'm done. It's my job to say, no, I only want a couple more dots.
I can't do more.
I can't do more, or it's, I mean, it's, I'm also playing with that sort of the balance, the asymmetry. I'm like, if it's too heavy on that side, it needs something over there. It needs some sort of like counterbalance. And so if it's too much in one direction, it needs to go counter to it. So I'm always playing with those tensions. And I can't explain it. And I shouldn't have to.
You don't have to.
No.
God knows.
But it's incredibly entertaining for me. I've been drawing these lines since 2016, 2017. And then going back to your studio, 2014. So really it's been 10 years. And it doesn't get old.
No.
It doesn't get old. And like the quote I read from Nabokov,
Yeah.
it's like, I'm always trying to find something new and genuine.
Right.
And sometimes I'll draw something, a shape or a pattern that I do all the time. And then I'm like, but I haven't done it this way.
Right.
There's always something novel.
Right.
I'm always...
Something that you surprise yourself.
I'm always surprising myself, and I love those surprises because...
Yeah, some of the best paintings are full of such surprises.
Right. I mean, you get the macro surprise, which is like, this series came out of nowhere. One evening, I just painted this new thing, and I said, I'm going to do a whole... It's been my whole year, you know?
Right.
But then also micro, each little pattern I'm making.
Sure.
If it feels like I'm just repeating myself to fill space, that's boring. No, I need to find something interesting. I have to.
But in reality, there is no repeat here. There's always something.
Exactly. I have the different motifs that I sort of approach and readdress, One is like a barcode, kind of looks like a barcode.
Mm.
It's just a grid of lines and dots, but it kind of looks like a barcode. I do it almost in every painting.
Right.
And every time I do it, I'm like, it's a little different. It's a little bit different every time. And that's what Zen is all about. You do the same thing over and over, and then you start to see the subtle differences.
To see that it's not the same.
Yeah, and that's why every tea ceremony is individual and unique. Every work of art, every calligraphy on a piece of paper, every brushstroke is its own thing.
Because life on Earth consists of such differences,
Yeah.
One moment is
That's
never
why
like
it's
the other.
important to have these rituals.
Of course.
You have a ritual to start your day, you have a ritual to start your painting.
It helps you to hold on to this evanescence reality that is that you cannot capture it.
You cannot capture. It's ephemeral. Every moment.
Completely.
Yeah. Ryoan-ji was a highlight of that trip for me.
I'm sure.
I read a lot about Zen prior to the trip, on the trip. D.T. Suzuki.
Oh, yeah.
Musashi. Musashi. Chrysanthemum and the Sword.
Yeah.
There's a lot of great...
There's great literature, of course, but I think the discovery of it for oneself is something that happens just like that. It happens unexpectedly.
Yeah.
Kind of.
All of a sudden, you get it.
It falls on your head.
It falls on your head.
Yeah.
That's what this is all about. Each one of these paintings was one afternoon of me in here.
That's how things happen,
Yeah.
Just like that. When I had a studio, I would go there in the morning and I would stay there till the evening.
Yeah.
And sometimes something happened, sometimes nothing happened.
Yeah, that's the life of an artist.
Sure.
Sometimes something happens and sometimes
nothing happened.
Nothing happens.
So you clean the brushes, you close the shop, you go home.
Yeah.
There will be tomorrow.
Yeah. Chop wood, carry water.
Yeah.
It's the same thing.